Hello and welcome everyone to the Mind Clash podcast, episode 18? 18. Yeah, 18. We're almost of age. We got a nice show with a bunch of great guests tonight. We will start at the top, alphabetical, always first to get shot, Asher Elias. Do a quick intro. Who are you? Nobody knows who you are. I used to do a podcast. Should do it again. Alright, we've got it complete. Turn Discord up. That is weird. I don't know why. Easily. Number 7. I love technical issues. Just try talking some more, guys. I don't know what I've done wrong. Yeah. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe I fixed it?
Hello.
Ah, I fixed it.
Sound working?
Yeah, I think I fixed it.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, this is what post is for. Good old post.
More of a Kellogg's man myself.
I'd take a corn pop any day. Alright, so we're going to ignore the barbecue sauce on the ground behind me, and we'll try this again from the top. Welcome to Mind Clash Podcast, episode 18. We're joined by a lovely group of guests who, unfortunately, are going to repeat themselves. Asher, could you try again?
Yeah. After the Matrix reset, I am Asher Elias. I am a FC in Goonswarm Federation, and I do block fights with Goonswarm, medium fights with my group Reavers, and small gang with my pals. 5 to 10 people. So I do a lot of FCing, a lot of different fights. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. Jurius.
Hi, I'm Jurius Doctor. I'm a teacher with Eve University in a small gang FC. I run regular monthly battle ventures fleets, as well as some other events such as stealth bomber fleets for Eve University out of Solitude.
Yo, I want to get in a battle venture fleet. That sounds awesome.
They're so much fun.
Sounds like lost mails incoming. Tridget.
Actually, he managed to tackle a Vindicator for Iron one time.
That was great.
So I'm Tridget. I'm from Arnamata. I'd say, in the scope of EVE, a medium-sized fleet FC. I'm the default FC for my alliance.
Default the standard. Count on you.
Default as in, I am the one that just talks the most and the loudest, I suppose.
No one else wanted the job.
Exactly.
Excellent. Kael?
All right. And I'm Kael Decadence, member of the Entropy of Annihilation Corporation in Legio de Mortem. And apparently, I'm now a writer for the Imperium News Network. Spy.
Controversial writer for the Imperium News Network.
Yeah, apparently. I'm a shitlord.
We'll get there in a second.
Full of piss and vinegar, as one would say.
Fire, I thought. Yeah, I'm Meredudd. I'm a line member of Shadow State Corporation in the Goonswarm Alliance. I do this show and yap my face off on Twitter. All right, well, let's get down to what we're here to talk about. We'll start with the fiery topic from previous. The article that you posted, Kael, on Imperium News Network, Great Thinker or Great Con Man. Could you post that in chat and maybe talk about what you wrote?
Yeah.
There?
Yeah, let me just grab the link. Okay, so I posted the link in the Twitch chat. So essentially what I did was it a harsh headline, Great Thinker, Great Con Man? Maybe it was a little too much. But basically what I felt was that Mr. Ghost, CCP Ghost, had done a lot of promising. A lot of things were supposed to have been headed our way, and I don't think he delivered. So I called him out on that.
For those of us not in the know, who's CCP Ghost?
So CCP Ghost was introduced to us earlier this year at FanFest. He is, as a background, I believe he's a criminal pathologist, criminal psychologist. He kind of as a profiler of sorts.
Oh, is this the guy with the really trippy presentation? It was like creeping everyone out.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, and of that presentation, he said a lot of cool things and had an awesome story in the background, but he didn't really say as much as he said. He didn't say much, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And he continued that tradition in later presentations at Vegas, and then again in various podcast forms. He said a lot of stuff that didn't really have a lot of depth or relative meaning. So yeah, he's supposed to be the head producer guy behind the new player experience, which was just delivered in the Inception release, and Inception indeed.
So it came off as an article very negative towards the outcomes of the new player experience, but you didn't offer a lot of paths forward, and you kind of left out the paths forward that have been discussed at eVegas 2016, and I don't know if it's been a dev blog on it, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know that. I don't really know how to even begin with this. There really hasn't been what seems like a progression in what's next. I mean, I know we've been promised that there's going to be further iterations and the NPE is going to evolve further, but I mean, I know they can't let out all their secrets, but I mean, where's it going? I don't know.
Well, typically a game developer will be fairly tight-lipped about what they're planning on doing until it gets to a stage where they're ready to commit on something, because too many times, especially with CCP, too many times have they said something and then not commit on it, and we get roasted. Fuck me. My phone's going. I was actually...
oh geez.
Wasn't there a video from 2006 where they were showing off environmental flight, like flying through the atmosphere?
Oh, I don't know. That'd be dope, though.
Yes, there's an old video of that.
So just a great example of exactly that phenomena.
The old
I mean,
trailer videos that led on to nothing.
I mean, this isn't exactly like Incarna, but at the same time, I mean, I think we all thought we were going to get something revolutionary that was just going to blow us out of the water.
I mean, I haven't done a new player experience, but I watched some streamers, and it certainly seems a lot better than it was before.
Yeah, I mean, because before, like here it was, you created a
Low
character,
bar.
you went out in your pod in space, and they said go play. That's what it was before, essentially.
The new experience seems pretty good though. You like appear, and there's a lot of on screen prompts to sort of help you explain what you're supposed to do, orbit and lock and shoot the guy. I watched this video last night where the guy couldn't figure out that he had locked the asteroid first and not the target, and couldn't figure out where the locked display was. So there's
Yeah,
certainly some level of more effort that needs to go into it, but um, for a game this complex, you're going to need some level of if everything is handed to you on a platter at the start, you're going to just get overwhelmed by the ramped up level. There are going to be some people who just aren't equipped to play this game correctly, I imagine, and you're going to have to weed those out anyway. I mean, you don't want to
yeah. I mean,
have
I
a
was
World of
watching.
Warcraft experience for the first 3 hours, then dump them in Real Eve, do you?
Yeah, no, but I mean, like just like you said, I was watching another video yesterday of a guy and a gal who were doing it together, like a
Yeah,
Let's
I
Play
watched them.
Eve. Yeah, and he was sitting there like, why am I not firing on this thing? I don't get it. I've locked him, but he didn't realize he was shooting at the other target or the other thing he was locked on. And then, I mean, nothing was obvious to him that like, hey, dummy, maybe you should unlock that target or change your weapons over to that guy. I mean,
I
some
think
of it boils down to common sense, but at the same time, if you're doing a walkthrough and showing them things, you should show them the correct thing.
I think you've hit the nail on the head when it comes to new bro education, in that CCP themselves haven't been very good at dialing it back down to the absolute bare fundamentals. And Johnny Guns, another Twitch streamer, had the same problem when he was running through the NP. He'd never played Eve before, period. And he's going through and he's wondering, he's like, my guns aren't doing anything. Well, his target's 36 kilometers away and he's using autocannons, that
Yeah.
are 10k optimal. So
Yeah, there's nothing in the tutorial to tell you give you feedback on what you're doing wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with, going one step ahead in the tutorial. If you've already locked the target before the AI has told you to lock the target, well, guess what? You're gonna have to restart the whole damn tutorial.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is like bugs with a flow, and of course, if you ever encounter something like that, file a bug report and tell them exactly what your repro steps are, and that they can actually fix that stuff pretty easily.
Oh,
That's
but
not
but I
bad
mean,
design. That's just buggy.
I don't think it's a bug at all because I came into that problem. Every in real life friend that I've had came to that problem. A lot of people on Twitter and Facebook come to that problem. It's a problem with the logic.
Well, that's exactly we're saying the same thing. I'm just saying it from how QA would present it to them.
Right. But I mean, it is what it is. It was a topic that I felt needed to be addressed. Maybe it was a little too pointed at CCP Ghost. I know he's not the developer, guys. I know this. I know he's not a coder. I know he's not a programmer. He's a psychologist who was trying to get into the psyche and the mindset of the Eve player, and how do we get average Joe to want to keep playing. I get it.
Mike Azariah in chat says that there's a round table on the new player experience being organized.
Yes, I think that's the one done by Jintan.
that'll be an
How
interesting
do
one to
I
be fly.
signed up?
That'll be
Is
an
that
interesting one. Yeah, be a fly in the room for that one. I would love to be there.
that's the one with Jintan, right? He's hosting it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Has
I think. Go ahead.
Iron Armada taken advantage of the new corporate new player recruiting?
The new player recruiting, like you're talking alphas, or you talking like the in-game?
The corporation invites where you got the bonus SP and the plex to the corporation and the auto invite to the corp?
We're trying to. It's always one of the things, especially with a smaller organization that isn't maybe as universally known, if you will, as some of the larger people, is that it's very, very difficult to get your name out there, to get people to get towards you. But then on the flip side, as a medium to small size organization, it's hard to get people to actually fucking go out and recruit people. So that's our major failing point is actually that.
I don't know, Asher, do you hear anything from Karma Fleet? Are they utilizing that functionality?
Some of the alpha clones?
About using the corporate invite option. That's one of the things that Ghost introduced was, or tried to push, was corporate invites for the new player experience.
This is the first I've heard of it, so if they are, I haven't never heard them say it.
Yeah, that whole thing didn't really make sense to me. Like, who's getting the reward for that corporate invite?
I think it's
Or
the
what
CEO.
is the reward? I mean, damn, so I'm going to make a corp and start doing some corporate invites. Shit.
Well, that kind of stuff goes on already.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything really about that.
And I know Eve University doesn't really have a set corporation, do they?
No,
Yeah.
well, there is Eve University, the corporation, but they exist within Ivy League, the alliance. And we're in the unique position that we don't really have to do recruiting because our chat channel is included among the New Bro help channels by CCP. So people just find their way to us. In fact, we've, kind of benefited as a double-edged sword, the influx of alphas. And I say it's a double-edged sword because on the one hand, you're getting a lot of new players who are really excited to try Eve for the first time because they've known about it and they've wanted to play it, but for maybe financial reasons or other reasons, they haven't been able to engage with it before now. And now they're coming into the game. But you're also getting a huge influx of players who come from the free-to-play culture, if you will.
How are you getting new players coming your way? Like, what drives the traffic to you?
Well, from my conversation with the people who are doing a lot of the on-the-ground communication with New Bros, particularly in our personnel department, it seems to be largely that people ask around and say, where's the best place for me to find the answers in this? And a lot of time in rookie chat, either because I myself spend time there and try to help people find their way to corporations they would fit well with as a personality match and as for their interests, but also because people will often say unprovoked, hey, if you need information, look at the UniWiki. And our wiki has been a huge draw for people because we do work very hard to keep it up to date.
Interesting. Yes, because that's exactly what I've been doing with the even hour initiative that I've been trying to spearhead. That's what I do. I go into rookie help chat, and when people ask, where do I find information about this, or what's a good skill plan for this, where do you think I point them? Eve University Wiki.
And not as a shout out to the wiki in particular, but the wiki team, we recently started actively recruiting new curators to work with it. And Rose Chandlin, who's our director of communications, we're sort of corporation agnostic. As long as you're not, going to be trying to spam the wiki with advertisements for your corporation, we want the experienced FCs and theory crafters and lore heads, the tinfoil hats from other organizations to contribute to our wiki, because it doesn't just help us, it helps your corporation, helps your new bros who are going to come through and read the content there, and it's going to help your experienced people as well, making sure that the fits that are on there are competent and being suggested to our fitting team for posting to the wiki. This is all stuff that helps the entire Eve community.
Actually, that would not help me, because anytime someone goes, I have a conspiracy theory that people intentionally post bad fits to the Eve Uni wiki so that they can get easier kills.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's not really serious.
They're not great fits all the time, but it's a good primer if you're looking like how do I do this?
Probably there's so many legacy fits that are just really bad or out of date that probably the best thing would be to delete every fit and then have people who are like relatively competent go back and redo them.
Yeah, and we're doing a big push right now to try to get that up to date, because we do acknowledge that some of those are going back well before Frostline, and there's a lot of the fits that we use internally are all on FleetUp. So, as an internal tool, most of us don't use the wiki; we're using FleetUp.
And if you look at any public fleet tool, like there's so many bad fits. Just bad fits abound. It's hard. Like being a good fitter in this game is really a skill.
Yeah, that was a concern voiced when there was discussion about having public fits, like recommended fits from League of Legends, assigned to each ship in the game that you could just pull up as part of the new fittings browser.
Hey, that's a good idea.
There was concern though that people would troll the fits, like just put shitty, you know.
Oh, I used to do that with Battle Clinic. I'd upload really, really shitty fits and then pump them with upvotes.
Oh, you're the one.
He's the shit disturber.
Well, in League of Legends, you've got this website, Mobifire, and they have just the worst guides ever.
Exactly same thing.
Yeah, so like most e-fitting websites are the equivalent to Mobifire. That they're just really there to hurt other players.
Yeah.
When you initially were like, I just sat down and put my headset on because the delivery guy got here, but I thought when you were saying that it was like a CCP, put it like in like the traits or something, be like a recommended fit in the traits of the show info of a ship hull would display a fit or something like that.
I actually would love to see how many people playing the game, even those who attended, eVegas, actually are using the fitting browser.
Oh, I'm sure we'll get
You're talking
stats at
about-
some point.
You're talking about the ghost fitting thing?
Instead of EFT or
Oh, I'm
Pyfa.
using it.
yeah, I use it too because I refuse to use Python.
I use Pyfa. I never touch it except to import from Pyfa.
I use it to fill out those fits. I like the fill in, a little bit of CPU, a little bit of power grid, or shuffling around the meta modules.
It's just so much easier to do that in Pyfa to find the modules you're looking for. Then I agree. The new fitting window is a big improvement over the old one, that's for sure. But it's not a replacement for Pyfa or EFT.
No, and I don't think it ever was aimed to be because
They specifically said it was not.
Yeah, I think I was referring more to like public fittings and being able to like post and share fittings that you think work well. I mean, yeah, obviously we're gonna get the trolls that post, complete shit fit, industrials in there that are basically custom designed to get ganked.
It'd be cool to have like a CSM type group where you elected like Namamai, Sutonia, Mr. Hyde. I'm just throwing out names, but these people would be in charge of keeping the in-game fittings up to date. So there'd be enough people that you couldn't have just one guy troll everyone, and that they would be trusted people who know what they're doing. And so it would give a nice baseline. They could put a baseline Condor fit. They could put a baseline, all this kind of fit for people, and then it would be easier for new players because that is one of the toughest things when I'm talking to new players, kind of explaining how fitting works. Mostly they just take what someone gives them and just.
We agree, Robot Kael.
Oh, his internet strikes again.
Yeah, the positive thing about that is they've actually discussed that, having the CSM or the ISD vouch in fittings suggested by the community, and then place them into suggested fittings. But we haven't heard anything about that since eVegas.
Wait, you want ISD to handle it?
Oh, I hear now.
I mean, they might not. I don't know who the ISD crew are. Like, there could be an
it seems
ISD
like a bad
team.
idea.
We could just make an ISD team for fittings
Yeah. Okay.
because there's
So what you're
300 ships in Eve.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you feel like a group of veterans would do some good work in order to improve the new player experience.
Sure.
Sounds like a good service. If only someone would
It
offer that
does.
service.
If only someone would.
My personal feeling is that I like the new NPE. I just don't think it went far enough. And yeah, they've promised that there's going to be further iterations, but it feels to me like, the voice acting is great. They didn't get Peter Dinklage, but nobody's perfect. And there's that element of, it feels, as somebody who's been playing the game for a while, like a splash of warm water in the face. You kind of get, your refresher, you're in there, and then you're punted into the wild. And I feel almost like there needs to be two Eves if the NPE is going to work well. One where you hold a person by the hand and give them sort of the guided Halo type experience where you walk them through everything. They have a full campaign mode to play through that's voiced and acted and properly developed. And then at the end, if you imagine a situation where Cortana turns to the Master Chief and says, okay, all your suit's abilities are unlocked. The universe is yours. Go. And kicks you out at that point when you've fully skilled into those things and you know how to explore and to do these other things.
Wow, amazing. But actually, I brought up on this show, and I think I mentioned it on podcast a long time ago. So when you're in the captain's quarters, right? And there's that room that nobody can go into. Why not have something set up almost like a holodeck style um, playground where you can actually load up missions or load up battles and learn with that new advanced AI.
He basically said that any kind of the captain's quarters stuff has no future development going to it.
Oh, I mean, even if it's not in the captain's quarters, but I mean, just some sort of training room.
His point still stands. Some sort of thing that you can press and it's out. It's removed from the Eve universe to fuck around in and or learn, and that's a great idea.
Who was it?
I agree.
Who left? Not recently. It's sort of a while ago. Is Rise still with CCP? Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Soundwave, maybe. Some guy who left. He made like a custom battle arena, so you could just do that.
The dojo.
Yeah, exactly. And so the module's there. CCP just doesn't want to release it.
I think if you put a splinter into Eve where you can just jump in, get instant PvP content, have no negative side effects, maybe just some killboard recording, that would break the game. Like PvP would stop.
It would take away from the joy of
yeah.
yes. And I understand why they're reticent to do it, because part of the fun of killing someone's ship in Eve, I mean, it's not like Eve is the best combat experience in the world. Let's not kid ourselves. We can go play Dota or League of Legends or many other games if we want sort of a more engaging combat system. But part of what makes Eve great is that you're killing the time and effort that went into gathering that ship through resource gathering, through mining, through building it, through developing blueprints, all that stuff. That chain went into making this ship. And when you destroy it, you've destroyed it permanently.
But like instanced predefined scenarios that you can run through for practice and self-learning, I think that's great.
As long as, just like you were saying, as long as it's strictly you versus some bots, then that's cool.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, they've got the
hopefully-
new AI for the mining fleets. Why not build something in like that? Like you've got NPCs that can rep you. You've got NPCs that are gonna help their fleet members do ECM. I mean, why not build a training scenario that you can load into an environment?
Well, hopefully the whole mission experience will evolve to encompass the new AI so that every mission is like you're flying a PvP simulation. So you're not learning these redundant skills of how to maximize your cap recharge, and you can actually learn how to kite, how to peel guys off, how to bubble, how to tackle, how to rep when under fire, how to overheat. All the skills that you learn in a PvP game, and you should know for a PvP game, because isn't that one of the end games of Eve? Perhaps half of the end game of Eve?
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, at the same, I don't know. I'd rather not Eve split into two different things, but I mean, you got to figure what they said, like 90% of all Eve players, and like, or something like some ridiculous number like that.
I think the other thing to be careful of with scenarios that are pre-built like that is that, once you've run them once, you're used to what's going to happen. And the beauty of PvP is that it puts you in the hot seat. And I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to, how many FCs I've talked to that have said, the first time they got into an unexpected fight, they forgot to, cycle their reps.
Yeah, but I mean, with the AI, they're not always gonna do the same thing every time.
And that's the part I would leave up to the devs to try to be inventive in, as help the scenarios change up.
Well, I don't think
All
the
right,
new
so
player experience is finished by any chance, but let's move on to a couple other topics so we can get down to our spotlight.
yeah, just real quick though, I apologize. I had to do a real work thing, so I'm gonna go ahead and bounce out. You guys carry on and have a wonderful evening.
Be safe,
All
dude.
right,
See ya.
Kael.
Be safe, man.
Do you want to shout out before you leave?
I think there was something I want to shout out. No shout outs for me. Just read my shitty article if you want to and spurge on me and hate on me. But I stand by what I said.
All right. Well, you take it easy, Kael.
Also, Scott Van Cleef sucks.
Fair enough.
I'm out.
Who?
I heard he's not even in CO2 anymore.
Scott Van Cleef. All right, later, guys.
See you, man.
Regular podside personality. You want to quickly touch on the Reavers' #1 victory in the Imperium tournament?
Sure. Imperium held our first tournament last week. Yeah, I think last week. Using the Alliance tournament rules, accepted 7 people and 70 points instead of 10 and 100. My team, Reavers, we practiced for about a month and a half, 1 day a week, and came up with some fits. We ended up coming through the tournament. We won every game. We lost 2 ships the entire tournament. So we did pretty well. I think mostly it was just being more prepared. And a lot of my guys have had a lot of experience, in sort of the small to medium sized fights. So I think it carries over relatively well to tournament time. But it was a really fun experience. And boy, it was super, like we were like shaking at the end. You really get the PvP shakes back that you might not have gotten for a long time. So
Amen
it was
to
very
that.
exciting.
Was there a particular doctrine that dominated the meta?
Hard to say because there wasn't bans and so you couldn't see who people really hated. And then lots of groups came in with just one doctrine and ran it the whole way through until they lost. We had 3. We had a kiting doctrine. We had a Barghest and Fleet Typhoon doctrine that was really strong. And then we had like a pseudo tinker with a regen Tengu that repped itself for like 2,400 HP a second.
Ooh.
And it healed. So we ran all 3. We started with the cutting doctrine. We used our Flutengest, which is our armor Barghest, and Fleet Typhoon doctrine in the middle, and then we finished with the Tinker. And so points were really hard to come by when you only have 70, and battleships cost you 18 to 21 each. That means 2 of your players end up taking up 40 points, and you got to split 30 between between 5 other people. So it's hard to fit it all in.
Sounds like a lot of
stars.
fun. Did you also participate in the the Eve Alliance tournament?
We've tried to. We've entered the draw for the last 3 years, but we haven't been drawn all 3 years in a row.
You didn't want to pay into it?
I do not have 85 billion ISK to pay in to go to your first Alliance tournament. I mean, that might make sense when you have a chance of winning, but we're going to lose in the first round. So it doesn't really make sense to pay 80 billion for a first round loss.
I think you're selling yourself short because Iron Armada made it past that to this year, and that's exactly what we said.
Fair enough. And but did you guys make 80 billion worth back? Going past the first round?
Well, I got the lottery ticket, so I didn't actually pay that. But
See, there you go. If we had been picked, we would gone for the last 3 years. If we had been picked, we would have gone. But it just seems like it's not happening for us. So one of these years, maybe we'll get our first chance to go.
Fair enough.
The other big fight of the week was a second Keepstar was attempted at. I know, Asher, you were there. Were Tridget or Jurius, did you guys get to those fights?
I did not, but I got a shout out to the escalating entropy guys. Fucking ballsy to put that up there at that time, and they pulled it off. So thumbs up.
There are actually 2 this week. One got blown up and one survived.
Yeah. Everyone knew about the one that died.
Well, the one that died was Rockets, and who is it for? Kriba and whatever. It was under fucking Purple Hammond to worry, so it was Rockets. But yeah, that one died, and I laughed super hard about that.
Yeah.
It's funny the PL showed up in heavy numbers for the escalating entropy fight, but not for Rockets.
It's because they paid them.
Well, the Rocket one was way further away. They were like 3 mids from the escalating entropy one, if that. And the one they had down in the southern part was like probably 10 to 12 mids. So it wasn't even close. They also would have been a lot closer to a lot more hostile, supers. We didn't bring any supers up to the escalating entry one. We had a relatively decent sized cap fleet, but we didn't have any supers. So PL and NC Dot just sat there for like 6 hours during that one, just at a mid with their supers and titans just sort of doing nothing, and then they finally dropped, and that's when we left.
Yeah, lots of big fights in the news. 6-hour brawls.
Yeah, we the lag in that one was horrendous. I was saying on the Reddit that I think the Crime Watch system should turn off in low sec like once you hit 1,000 people, because it was completely unplayable for me for a good 45 minutes. I was literally 15 minutes behind on the lag. I would see stuff 15 minutes after it happened on my client. And so we started coordinating in out of game chat channels for our alpha strikes and stuff like that, because the X's in the fleet wouldn't show up in a timely manner. But overall, it was a good fight for us. I mean, I know we came out below in the IS column, but when you consider the amount of capitals we had to face, like, I feel we did pretty well. We took out, I think, like 80 billion of their stuff against an overwhelming majority of capital fleets that were just literally alphaing our Macarials with the fighter bombers and the fighters with one shot. Nothing we could do about it. No amount of reps. Nothing like. Considering that, and considering the amount of supers that they had on standby, I was happy with their performance. Some fights you get upset afterwards, because you lost the fight, but after that one, I wasn't, upset at all.
Well, and also it wasn't really a strategic thing for you guys. It was just, let's go dunk these guys.
But I'm sure Macarial prices probably will spike a little bit. There were a lot of Macarials dropped that day.
Good.
Bye.
Yeah, you just saw the power of fighters and fighter bombers against battleship fleets. Compared to the T3 fleets that came, there was the T3 fleets lost way less than the battleship fleets did, and it was after burning battleships too. It wasn't like we were talking about MWD. No, they were just following the afterburning battleships off with no concern, no problem. It's unfortunate because you can't volley fighters like you can volley battleships. They have this invulnerability mechanic where every time one of the 9 fighters, or however many fighters there are in the squadron, one of them dies, for a tick, they're invulnerable from damage. So if the entire fleet locks up a fighter squadron and fires at it, you'll only take off one of the 9 fighters if everyone fires at the same time.
In the case of the big Keepstar fights, do you think that we're going to see an increasing role for the NPSI bomber fleets like Bomber's Bar?
Well, in nullsec, maybe. I mean, you have the Dix system now, which makes bombing a little harder to do. I mean, I don't want to sound like. Let me just put it this way: there's never been a moment of consideration ever when Goonswarm's planning a fight where we said, "Well, what about Bomber's Bar?" It's nothing we've ever thought about. It's never changed opinion or fit or anything. So, in my opinion, they've never have been. Now, maybe that changes, but they're just generally there's 4 quality bomber FCs, and they're not in the NPSI groups. And so, they've been getting I've seen some good kills. Like they killed the whole pandemic horde fleet, but I mean it's like wiping out a brave newbie fleet. It's good, but I've never seen like a PL or NC fleet taken out by Bomber's Bar. So I don't think that they're a big concern, and I think now with Dix it'll be even probably less of one. They in the MTACO second fight, they tried to bomb my Cerberus fleet, and they all decloaked inside a bubble. By the time their bombs were exploding, we were 90 kilometers off, and we killed like 40 of them. So it's. But I guess one thing you can say about that is if they have one FC who's like really gifted, and I guess he or she keeps like doing it, eventually that might become a thing. But that's one thing about bombing is you have to have a lot of practice to get good at it.
Do you think the Dicks are going to make a new era of hubris where you think you can defend your fleet from bombs and people will bring old doctrines that are now that were always vulnerable to bombs, but now they think are invulnerable because they can defend them with a couple of command destroyers?
I think yes. I think that you'll see that.
Absolutely.
I think
People make bad decisions all the time.
Yeah, and I don't think it'll be hubris. It'll just be like, if we can eliminate 40% of the bombs, this fleet can survive. Like you just see the math on it. But yeah, I think you'll see more Maelstroms, maybe more Tempests, any kind of Alpha Doctrine that was T1. I mean, let's be honest, T1 battleships are in a really awful place right now. They get volleyed off by carriers just as easily as the pirate ones do, but they but they lose super hard to pirate battleships. It's really hard to trade even favorably. The only one who can probably do it is the Maelstrom, because you can just alpha people and then get out once you've lost your ability to do so.
Wait, hold on. I want to interject on you, Ash. You're talking at the block level. At the medium-sized level, T1 battleships are still viable.
Sure. I don't really see many medium-sized battleship fleets. So, but I would imagine even at the medium-sized level that a Rattlesnake fleet will still beat up Dominic's fleet, or a Megathron fleet or whatever.
Is that still true in a future dominated by mineral prices crashing under heavy Rorqual support?
Yeah, because it doesn't matter if battleships cost 50 million, you still only have a finite number of pilots. So if you have 250 pilots in Macarials and 250 pilots in Ravens, you still only bring 250 ships, and the Ravens are going to lose. So no, I don't think that changes things. Now, maybe it means people who couldn't bring battleship fleets before do bring them now. The groups that used to show up in T1 doctrines might show up in T1 battleships instead. Sure.
Fair enough. Well, we're
Do you
starting.
think
We're starting to cusp into the FC stuff, so let's just get into the FC stuff, and then you guys can run your mouths about it as much as you like. So, keeping in mind that we try to focus our spotlight towards new players, and in this case, new FCs, because there's lots of people out there who haven't tried FCing, or they've reluctantly tried it, or they're like me, have taken a couple casual fleets out, but never run anything at a corporate or alliance level. I'm going to ask you guys blanket questions, and I'd like everyone to answer, and then you guys can discuss it if something comes up. But we'll start with Julius. How did you start FCing, and what was the driver that got you into FCing?
Well, I actually started off FCing with Eve University's Amar mining campus. I decided that I wanted to run a mining fleet, and they have regular shared cans that they do, and we actually have a very handy poached and then refined mining FC spreadsheet that we have set up that anybody can go to our wiki and use, but it allows you to track who's in the fleet, how much time have they spent mining, so that you can automatically calculate buyouts. And it even has a tool that pulls from Eve Market to get the prices for the ores up to date based on current time. That is, if the market hasn't crashed. I said, this spreadsheet's a monster. This looks like an undertaking, but hey, I'm up for a new task. So I put an advert out to Corp, and I said, does anybody want to do a big shining mining Shuriken this weekend? I'm going to try and run it for 24 hours, which was entirely too ambitious. I didn't get anywhere near what I wanted to get in terms of hours into it. I think I collapsed after 18 hours, but it was a fun time, and we made 4 or 5 billion ISK. It was nice. And then after that, I said, this FCing's it's an interesting experience, but I'd like to do some PvP FC. And I started chatting with people in uni who were FCs and started co-FCing. And I just kind of liked where it went from there. But I've realized that after a certain size, I start losing the joy of FCing, because I like the engagement that you get at the smaller size and being able to help new FCs grow.
So it was a passion that pushed you into FCing.
Yeah, it was really just the enjoyment of it. I mean, I don't think I've ever actually whelped a fleet. I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure that anybody who's listening to this will probably take it as an invitation to see my name and chat. And
one day, my friend, one day.
Yeah, one day I'm gonna wander into Goon Space and it's all over. I lose everything.
There are very few blues on this show.
But I mean, that's the joy of it, is that that the content is out there if you make it happen.
For sure. Asher, how did you get into FCing? What was your first FC fleets?
I started FCing for Theta Squad in Goonswarm. There just wasn't anyone to do it. We kind of had Theta was really small back then. If you know it now, it's quite large.
What's the
But it's like in Goonswarm we have groups called SIGs and squads. SIGs are special interest groups. That would be like Reavers. And squads are like groups called like Theta, and there's other ones, and those are more like social groups. So you go out and you roam for fun, and SIGs are like do more like serious business stuff. Because Goonswarm's so big, you kind of have to have ways to break it down. And we don't really have a corp-based culture like other alliances. People mingle outside of their corps. So that's how it's done. So Theta Squad sort of needed people, and I was new FC, and I had tons of bad ideas. And goons have great SRP, so people would just fly on my terrible idea of fleets. I'd be like, let's do spider tanking Myrmidons with cloaks, and everyone would be like, okay, let's try it. And we'd go out, and it'd be awful, and then I would come up with a new idea, and we do that over and over again. And after about a year and a half of doing that, I started kind of figuring stuff out. That's why I tell people, new FCs and goons, go out there, lose some fleets, try some different stuff. The best experience is getting out there and actually learning by losing. Don't be afraid to take engagements unless there's just no chance you're going to win. If you have 10% chance you could win and you think you can pull it out, go for it. And so I got to start doing that, and I just kind of kept on going up the ladder, based more on need than on desire. But I always have a desire to do something very well if I'm doing it. So I kind of started obsessing over it, and that's how I got here.
So it was a lack of content that in a kind of a passion that kept you to push yourself to get better.
Yeah.
Tridget?
Well, my first experience with FCing, well, let me tell you about the first time I ever called targets, which is a distinction between calling targets and FCing. But anyways, we jumped into a fight. I was in Stain Alliance. We were fighting Firma 16 at the time, and Scooter 1 was our main FC, and he immediately got headshot. And he says, someone call a target. And I'm like 2 weeks into the game in a vigil, and I had someone tackled, so I just started repeating the person's name. And then I found someone, and this is so embarrassing. I didn't even have my overview open. I was finding people by mousing over in space. And I was like, wow, everybody's so good. How do they find them so quickly? So I went and tackled a second dude after he died and said, this person's primer. And then they killed that one, and I went and tackled another one, this person's primer. And it just went like that to the end of the fight. And so then I got told about the overview a couple weeks later.
That's an awesome story.
And well, here's your, Jurius, you said you never whelped. Well, get it out early. My first actual official fleet for Stain Alliance, we got trapped in SV5 in Catch. I had done a run up. We were chasing some gang, and there were probably like 5 dudes, and we had like 20 dudes tops. Like, it was tiny. We got into SV5, and they jumped into head, so I stacked up on the head gate, and then I jumped into them. But as we were jumping into them, someone screamed that SV5 was exploding, and the enemy fleet had hid half of their forces in F90, which is the 3rd gate in the system. And I jumped into a bubble fuck gate, and the enemy fleet worked in, and I was like, oh my god, everybody get out of here, like completely panicking. Every single person died. Not a single person lived.
Fantastic.
Oh god, it was
See,
so
I
bad.
know what's going to happen to me. I know that I'm just going to warp into a bubble, and there's going to be a pipe bomb waiting to happen, and that'll be it.
I've never been pipe bombed, but I've definitely had my share of whelps, and it's part of determining if you can FC, if you can handle a whelp, because there are just some people who cannot do it. They can't take the responsibility of having lost people, their ships. And I'm actually glad I joined Goonswarm, because if my first whelp had been in a group where people had to pay for their ships, I don't know if I could have kept FCing or not.
So some people are definitely afraid of whelping, and you guys have shared your stories of whelping. But how do you choose your fight as a FC? Kind of grind your way up the ranks. You've already figured out how to invite people. You've got your alliance supports that have got you into a doctrine that's half decent. How do you choose your fights? Do you just go out and fight everything as a new FC, or are you gonna fight strategically? Maybe hot drop, or maybe just tackle that one guy and really just gang fuck him to death?
I think Asher, like you were saying about yours, how you just did it, and see what worked kind of deal. I know I am coming from a completely different direction of how to approach a fight. I feel that if anybody wants to get good at FCing, they should go out and solo. And the reason why I mean go out and solo is because you learn some basic fleet concept when you're soloing that you don't want to learn while you're FCing, like how to engage on the right spot of the grid that you want to do, whether on the gate at 0 or do you want to engage off the gate, how to split a superior force, what is your ship good at. Say you're like a blaster boat or something like that, and they're like a kitey missile boat. Well, obviously you want to engage at 0 and they want to engage at range. How do you force that fight and that kind of stuff? You can learn those lessons as an individual, and then when you're FCing, effectively the fleet is your ship. Sure, you're piloting your ship, but the fleet is your ship. And so if you know how to pilot yourself, then using your words, you can pilot a fleet.
It's not bad advice, but I would say go out and kite. Don't go out and brawl.
That was the example.
The most important thing right FC is controlling your place on the grid. And you learn, you learn module control from brawling. That's what you learn, which is an important skill in solo, but it's not actually terribly important in being an FC. Having awareness is the most important skill of an FC. Where you are, where you're going, where your enemy's going, where they are, where everything is on the grid, and having that mental map, having the spheres of influence of every fleet. Those are the skills that you need. I'm talking at least on the block level when you have maybe 18. Well, that's maybe as exaggeration, but you've got 5 to 8 fleets on the grid. Those are the important skills. So go out there, move your ship around. That's how you get better, in my opinion, if you're going to do it solo.
I think Tridget makes a really good point about the soloing. One of the biggest things I learned from getting into solo and getting into small gang and fighting at gates and plexes and low sec is that you learn really quickly how to spot bait. And you don't want to run into bait, barehanded the first time you're running a big fleet because you'll get eaten.
It's true. Yeah, the spatial awareness of what Ash is talking about is 100% correct. And I do want to point out the blaster was an example, because if you go out and try to solo in a blaster boat that's not like a nano Talos, well, even including that, you're gonna get fucked. What would you say, Asher? Actually, what would you say would be a good ship as an individual to go out and fly that ship and try to learn some
Slicer.
maybe transfer? Slicer, really?
Slicer.
Seconded.
I mean, it's cheap. You can get a bunch of them.
No, it's cheap. That is actually, yeah, you're right. That's
and they reward control more than probably any other ship in the game. Like, you live on the edge of a Slicer. So
the stepping stone, maybe a Tristan, and then into a Slicer.
Tristan's a little more. I mean, there are kiting Tristans. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So yeah, I mean, that's not a terrible pick for the Tristan. But you don't learn anything about guns in a Tristan that's kiting, because usually your drones are doing the work. So sometimes the difference between winning and losing in a big fleet fight, like I fought like 100 M and Gilas where I took over for the other FC and we weren't breaking anything, and I just matched transversals and we started popping Gilas left and right. And those are the skills that you can learn in a gunboat that you probably can't learn on a drone or a missile boat. I do think that if you're getting a little overwhelmed, taking a missile boat or a drone boat is a good way to just focus on your positioning, and then you can slowly add in the gun positioning skills.
There were 2 votes from Army of Meredudd and Kael for the Caracal.
The Caracal.
I mean, that's a great ship for cruiser size. Yeah, you can kite in it. Like I said, you don't have to worry about guns off the start, and it's a powerful ship too for a T1 cruiser. So you don't have. You can do it at all kinds of ranges. When our FCs take out Caracals, I'm always trying to get them to fight at 50 kilometers rather than just going at 0, which tends to be the natural inclination.
I like the Kestrel, especially if the new bros have trained up their missile bombardment skill, because you can kite in it, you can get range with it, and it works great in small gangs.
I mean, I've been flying a lot of ruptures, and that ship sucks so bad, you gotta learn to be good. But once you move past a single ship, or you and a friend flying around, what's a doctrine that, for each of your respective sizes, would be a good doctrine for a newer FC trying to get his feet under him today?
Caracals.
Yeah, I usually have new FCs do missile ships, so Tal Wars into Caracals is good. They both encourage you to control the grid, and you have to move your, like, I think having FCs brawl at the start is bad for the development, so I try to get them into something that at least has some kite to it. So those are both good. We used to do Harpies a lot, and we don't have them anymore, but Harpies were a lot of fun too for new FCs.
Yeah, I agree with both of those. I like the Talwar for the mid size. You also get a good alpha if you get any number of players into fleets. So if you get like a 20-person fleet, you can teach people about how to run coordinated alphas. It's also really good for the fact that they're pretty mobile and they've got the signature reduction, which is nice. So you're not worrying about taking too much damage in return as long as you're keeping on the move. And I think it's actually a pretty good ship to solo in. I've had some good success with that. So
On the Rocket Tower, or was it a missile?
Rocket Tower is great if you're just sitting in a plex, like sit at 15 off the beacon when you warp in.
Yeah.
Just pick fights that way. You can do the same thing with a Corax, but it's not as much fun.
I would say another good one outside of the Caracal. We use Feroxes as a learning platform for skirmish commanders, and that's a good platform in terms of its cheapness and how many people you need to have to make it actually viable. Because obviously, coming from smaller lines, I can't just call a fleet and get 100 dudes. It's like, call a fleet and get 20 dudes.
Oh, when I call a fleet and get 100 dudes, I'm upset. Numbers are too low.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Ferox is probably the perfect sort of middle ground doctrine for your sort of mid-level skirmish commanders. They're fantastic. They got great tank. They have guns. They have range. They're not expensive when you have insurance in the mix. Yeah, they're a fantastic fleet doctrine. One of the best. Even before they got buffed, they were good. Now they're even better.
So there's a whole ton of mid-tier FCs out there spinning their wheels, running Hurricane autocannon fits into Macarial fleets and whelping them. What's the technique or tip that you would give them to step up to the next level?
Overtanked probing FC boats.
Repetition. The only way to get good is by doing it. It's very hard to get fights in Eve, so you have to figure out how to get yourself your 10,000 hours. And whatever it is you got to do to get that, that's how you get good. Most FCs who are good in this game, I wouldn't say are naturally fantastic FCs. They're good, but they have a lot of time in it. There's only a few people who have a lot of time and who are naturally gifted. People like Mr. V, Shadu, people like that. But everyone else is mostly just someone who is fine but has a lot of experience.
Tridget, you want to go into your option a little bit deeper?
Like speaking from a group of people who every ship counts. You know what I mean? Like when you're running a 10-man gang, like if you're first starting and you're starting a 10-man gang, the difference between an FC boat being like a line DPS ship with good skills versus a overtanked ship that maybe doesn't do the same amount of DPS, but you have combat probes on it or something like that, that lowers your overall ability to fight a 10 on 10, but it increases your ability to choose where you want to fight on the grid. And that can sometimes be more than a replacement for the loss of functionality of your own personal ship.
Jurius?
Yeah, I think the biggest learning thing that every new FC has as a challenge, regardless of the ship they're flying or the doctrine that they've come up with or have worked with somebody senior to them to start off on, is just getting over that confidence hump and learning to maintain control and maintain personal control. Like everybody knows a bad FC is that FC that gets angry, that FC who discourages people from participating or doesn't encourage somebody to try scouting or being +1 if they've never done it before. Getting into a place where you build that trust with the people you fly with is sort of the hardest thing to get around, I think.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having your ideas quashed or hearing an FC freeze up when you should be calling targets, or
I was about to say an FC freezing is probably actually the worst FC.
Yeah, that really discourages your fleet. If you are an aspiring FC or a new FC, don't get caught up on, oh, is this the perfect target? Is this the right target? Just call targets. It's always better to be shooting something. You can always reevaluate. I think FCs are worried they'll look dumb if they have to say, oh, well, stop shooting him and switch to this dude. I do that all the time. And you got to just always be giving some kind of command. Don't ever seem, it's doubt. Doubt is the worst thing someone can have when everyone flies with you by choice. There's no one in the army here. No one's required to show up to your fleets. So give them a good time, give them confidence in you, and they'll come back. And a good time doesn't always mean that you had a great fight. Look at an FC like Boat, who is not the best FC in the game, but there's people who love Boat fleets because of the things he brings to the fleet. He brings his personality, and it's obviously some people could leave it, but some people love it. So if you can offer your fleet something like that, then you'll be a step ahead of the competition.
Yeah, I've always heard that there's a way to market your fleets and to keep your players interested. Even if the fleet is boring, telling your fleet what you were scouting, even if it's not going to break your OPSEC, if you're not going to get spied out and lose that target. Just saying, oh yeah, I'm probing down this Ishtar, hold on. Yeah, no, probe's at 50%. Just something to keep your fleet engaged as they're sitting on the gate waiting to jump in on your target, right?
That's something that Laz is fantastic at, and something I tried to pick up from him when I was coming up was during the fleet. It would just be like, shut up, do this, go here, be quiet, let's do this, But when the fight was over, he'd be like, all right, guys, this was what we were doing, and he would give us as much info as he could without breaking, OPSEC. He wouldn't tell us what spies told us or stuff like that, but he would tell us, well, we thought they'd be here, so we did this. And it gives you a good 3 minutes of just solid explaining why we did this, why we did this, and then your actions all fit in. Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so you want to come back to another Laz fleet because you're like, oh, okay, Laz will not only take us and hopefully get us a good fight or get us a win, he'll explain when it goes wrong or when nothing happens, why nothing happened or why it went wrong. And that's a really good thing for an FC to do.
Yeah, that is a very, very good tip to remember, especially for repeat people. If you're just breaking out into being an FC, doing an after action, a nice after action or something like that, or a fun fleet is the best way to get someone back. I was actually listening to the oh god, what is his name? Jane Fillion. His talk from Vegas or whatever about being a content creator or whatever like that. It was actually a really good talk. I'd recommend it to anybody. But one of the key pieces that he said in that is during this one particular engagement, there's 2 FCs with 2 fleets, both in the same fight on the same side, and one of the fleets got completely whelped, like they fucking lost everything, and that was Jane's fleet. And then the other FC, they were in kiting tengus or whatever, and they got a few kills, and none of them died or anything, but during the fight, it was when Pandemic Legion dropped in like a fuckload of supers and that kind of stuff right on top of Jane's fleet. And Jane was super, super like excited about it. Like, oh, we're going to try to kill this thing before we all die, blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, the other FC at the same time was like super negative about the situation, about how, oh, they dropped in, they're ruining our fun, this and that and the other thing. And then so in the after action, when people like filled out their forums of like, did you have fun on the fleet or whatever? The majority of people on Jane's fleet were like, oh, thumbs up. It was a huge success, everything like that, even though they all died in a fire. And then the other guy, his fleet, everybody was like, worst fleet ever, blah, blah, blah. And it was just because the only difference between the 2 fleets was the FC was positive on one side and super negative on the other.
Yeah, how you compose yourself in a fleet as a line member and who's been in a lot of different FC's fleets, how the FC composes themselves is often more important than the objective, because so many times in EVE, especially from the nullsec side, the objectives are very, we'll fight another day, we'll fight them, we're just here to blue ball them, we're just here to distract from something to go down, and there's never any actual content engagement from it. So when you're going to sit there for 2 hours or 3 hours or 6 hours, you want something back. And you just don't want that to be your YouTube video that you're half paying attention to. You want something from the FC. And often they are overwhelmed with command chat or listening to scouts or whatever's going on in their ears. But it's nice to have that feedback. Well, we'll get one more question here, and then we'll get into the wrap ups. Turn off your filters. Turn up the smug. What is your most successful fleet or fleet engagement, and why did you love it so much? Jurius, you want to start?
Actually, the one Tridget mentioned earlier with the Battle Ventures fleet, he and I had been talking about maybe having a joint roamer, have his guys come out from their lovely pocket of Null and participated in a fleet. And I ended up, as is often the case with a fleet full of new bros, like happens in Eve University. It took a little while for us to form and get everybody going, and I had some latecomers. But we had a Battle Ventures fleet that had undocked just after I'd finished teaching our Fleets 101 class in Solitude. And Tridget gets on the line and he's texting me in a private convo. He's like, "Hey, I've got my guys here. They're chomping at the bit here for something to kill. Like, you got to give us some content, man. Like, don't just make us sit here." And I'm like, "Yeah, no worries. We're gonna be your bait." So my fleet has no idea that I'm talking with Tridge, and there's we got to jump out of Pertinier into Y9G, and I'm like, "Now guys, when you jump through, don't lay an egg." And they jump through, and there's a 60-man confessor fleet sitting at 260 and a pin off of the gate, and everybody, of course, lays eggs. And we proceeded to go on and roam around, and we're jumping into, I think it must have been a Goes or Vey. I think it was Vey. And one of the scouts goes, "Can I tackle a Vindy?" And I'm like, "Shit, yeah, you can tackle the Vindy. Tackle the crap out of that thing." So I start messaging Tridge, and I'm like, "Come on, we've got something for you to kill. We got a Vindy, a Curse, and an exec here." And he's like, "Oh yeah, cool." So we're sitting there. We start losing guys. Some guys are forgetting that you can warp off in a venture because, of course, you get a +2 warp stab. And we start losing stuff. And then all of a sudden, his fleet comes in and just wrecks. And it was so much fun. We lost so many people, but everybody remembered it. It was just a great time having him there as sort of the ace up the sleeve, but also because the guys in my fleet weren't expecting that, and it was fun for them to see that they were participating in a bigger trap.
Living the Eve dream.
Yeah. What's that one advertisement that's in the station? There's always a bigger fish or whatever when the Nyx comes in.
Always. Tridget, your story. Don't copy Julius.
So this one time we were in a confessor fleet and we were following an IV venture. No. My favorite fleet. I would say one of the more defining moments. I don't know if it's a favorite fleet because generally my favorite fleets don't actually end up in anything. It's just us killing each other and laughing about it. But there's one particular fight when I lived in PV Agent Syndicate. We were in Huzzah Federation, and we were fighting against Bruce. If anybody remembered the Brutally Clever Alliance. Anyways, they outnumbered us by a significant portion, and I had convinced the Huzzah leadership that we were going to do sniping battleship fleets. So we had Megathrons and shit like that. And in that fight, I had pre-made pings around because there was they were dropping dreads on one of our towers, and in that fight was the first time that I'd ever dual box combat probed with my alt, and then had my main in a sniping battleship or whatever. But basically, it was warping in and out to a pre-stage pos and just constant warping in and out at 100 and 150, 130, whatever ranges, and we were sniping people down, and it was just so much micromanagement of setting up the next thing, making sure everybody's aligning, calling individuals to warp out in time. It was actually so much fun, and we ended up winning the fight in subcaps and losing the tower, so I guess it's a loss, but I don't know. I really enjoyed that one because it was the first time that I had stepped above the 30 on 30 range and started hitting the 100 on 150 kind of range.
big new experience for you. Get to get your feet wet.
Exactly.
Asher, your favorite experience? I think I know what it is, but you can tell
Well,
us.
I'm interested to hear what you think it is before I say.
The Aquarius fight with darkness.
Yeah, yep. You picked it out. Those Aquarius fights with Reavers against darkness were some of my all-time favorites. I like fighting outnumbered. That's really one of my favorite things to do, is to go outnumbered and either hold your own or even exceed expectations. So we ended up our campaign against Darkness and Aquarius having killed, I think, like 600 billion worth of stuff and lost like 120 billion. So it was a huge success for us. We had a great time. And then back when Brave was still in catch, myself and maybe 10 other guys deployed down, brought down just sort of all the awful elite PvP doctrines you could think of. Like not doctrines, but Orthreses and kiting caracals and scythe fleet issues. And we came down for 1 month, December in like 2014, and we ended up getting, I had like 1,000 kills that month. That was more just like scything through the wheat, but it was a really fun time because I always called it Eve Zombie mode. There were 70 brave newbies all in tackle frigates chasing your Orthrus, and you were killing one every 15 seconds. But you knew as soon as one of them hit a scram on you, they all would get you and you'd be dead. So you had to avoid that one scram or web, your life depended on it. So that was always hilarious fun that I've never really been able to replicate. So those were some of my greatest times in Eve.
Yeah, you got to join Reavers to get the full Aquarius Darkness legacy story.
Yeah, there's some good stuff. We need to put out like a little mini story sometime with all the fun stuff that happened there.
Yeah, just the T3 killing of the same guys over and over again.
I can tell that story really briefly if you want.
Do it. I mean, it's quality.
Yeah, it combines all of the kind of spurginess and stuff that we like to do. We noticed, Darkness is bringing T3s to every fight, and we happened to just accidentally kill the same guy a couple times. And so what we started to do was we started to maintain a spreadsheet of their T3 pilots that we'd killed the most, and then we would preferentially call them because we knew that they had already lost a lot of SP on that ship, and we ended up getting one guy 6 times in 1 week in one T3 class. So we took away his 5s probably on all of them, but we ended up with our spreadsheet having like multiple people, over 5 or 6 kills in the same class of T3, to the point where we started seeing them shift to new ones. And that was just a really funny one. We like, pull up the spreadsheet. Who should be primary next?
God, that is so funny. I'm so happy that you just said that, because that is okay. So at the block level that you're talking, you're pointing at individuals for shits and giggles, but at the small time level, we used to do that on our campaigns as well, as choose an individual and just make sure every fight this individual died until they stopped showing up. And God, it is really funny when you know that they're just tweaking about it inside their alliance because they don't get SRP, or maybe it's the FC and we keep killing him, or you know what I mean, like something like that.
Yeah, that's the old Elo Knight effect, where he used to fly T3s, but he lost them so much he started seeing only in Lachesis, so he stopped losing SP.
Yeah.
During the Fountain campaign, that eventually happened, where Elo Knight would only show up in Lachesis anymore, because I guess he just got tired of having to retrain T3 skills. I got an awesome streak in a Tengu where I was FCing from a Tengu, and obviously in an FC Tengu, your offensive skills don't matter at all. Where I went from Tengu offensive 5 all the way down to 1 in a row. In 5 losses in a row, I lost the same skill. That doesn't matter, so I never retrained it. And so finally I got it down to, I think I got to 0, and I had to start retraining it.
That is fluky.
It really was, but it was good for me because I didn't lose defensive or something I actually cared about.
Yeah.
It's like the classic days of losing FC5.
Oh yeah, I lost I never lost like a big one like FC5, but apparently one time I died when my clone had just upgraded, so I still had like the Delta clone or whatever, and I had just rolled over. And so for like 6 months in my Logi ship, I was having real problems with my capacitor. I could never figure it out. I'm like, EFT is lying to me. It's saying I have way more capacitor than I actually do. And then what I realized is I died with a slightly unupgraded clone, and I lost 7 hours of Logi 5. And for 6 months, I was at Logi 4.99.
Oh,
Finally, I'm like, oh, okay. This makes sense why I had no, like, my cap skills were awful, because I've technically been Logi 4 this entire time.
Huge relief when you actually figure it out, though.
Yeah, after all that time, it was great.
God, that's funny. I got to tell you guys, when the jump destroyers or the command destroyers first came out, we had so much fun with them, because one of our main fleets is the Confessor fleet. We do an Afterburning Brawl Confessor fleet, and we incorporated the jump desis with it. And at that particular time when they first came out, there was a group that had moved into our home system in Molden Heath, and they decided that they were going to set up shop on the station that was like just a ways over, and they fell for, and I've never laughed hard like this before, but there's a couple of individuals, they aggressed outside a station, and so we warped a jump destroyer and it jumped them off and killed them. And then another couple of people undocked, and then we double jumped them off with two like cloaky destroyers. We just double jumped them off. And then the third, it happened 3 times in a row in like 10 minutes. This dude undocks in a was like a Noctis or something like that to try to salvage the T3s that we just killed. And so we jumped him off and killed him too. Like we could not stop laughing.
In my opinion, the jump destroyers are the best thing CCP's come out with in the last 3 or 4 years. They're so much fun.
Agreed. And we use them actually quite a lot as a strategic tool. Where, as a practical example, just a couple of weeks ago, we had a spy on comm. He heard a POS password, and the enemy Macarials went into the POS and started bumping my triage out. So did the usual thing and ejected, the thing, told all the Rattler Snakes, pulse your MJDs and get out kind of deal. But this one particular triage, he decides when he's exiting the POS to take a devoter with him. So he's sailing out there like 70k with a devoter beside him who's, doing his thing. He's like, oh, triage bubble. So they end up getting a whole bunch of tackle on him, and our jump team managed to line up enough, and we like suicided all our inties into them to try to kill their inties or whatnot. But jump team came in and we jumped the Hicks away, jumped the bubbles away, and the dude managed to escape. So I don't know what it was. That kind of stuff has never before been in the game, and I love it.
I've got a pretty good jump destroyer, command destroyer story from a really big fight, if you're interested in hearing it.
Yes, it is.
We it was when, so this was before the Casino War, sort of right near when they'd come out. We were fighting, we being Goonswarm, we were fighting Snuffbox and whoever else it was. It was Tissue, though they were calling themselves Low Sec Voltron at the time. And they were using this really super annoying doctrine of Macarials with Logi Legions. And these Logi Legions had like 400k EHP. So, unlike most doctrines where you're like, well, if you can't break the main thing, kill the Logi that has 60k EHP, then kill the main thing. It was like, well, if you can't kill this, this 400k armor ship with no SIG before reps land, you can't kill anything at all. And so it was super annoying. It was very hard to fight. And so I started trying to devise a way to beat it. And right around when the jump destroyers came out, what we did was we did a lot of practice on CC, and then we had a tackle fleet of like jackdaws warp in, and they'd scrammed every single legion. And then we had eight like command destroyers like we'd practice warping in and spreading out about like 4 kilometers each. Well, they came in, 8 of them spread 4 kilometers. Their anti-command destroyers got like 6 of them killed or scrammed, but 2 of them got jumps off. And because the Legion were scrammed, they didn't move. But the rest of their Macarial fleet was jumped away from their Logi, 100 kilometers away from the Logi. And so those Legions only had the 6 kilometer rep range. So at that point, we were able to just cut through every Macarial we could tackle because our fleet was moved as well. And all of a sudden, we were right on top of them. They had lost all their Logi. It was 100 kilometers away. Couldn't rep them, and their fleet was we shredded them at that point. So that was a really fun time. We were able to use them in a big block setting. You don't see them used that much that way, but every now and again you hear a good story like that.
That is, yes, that is amazing. That and thus the Scram chain was born.
Yeah, they literally started doing it well after not long after that.
Yeah, now Scram chains are the big deal in LoSec. Most recently, some LoSec people came to invade us in our nullsec, so we would bubble them, but then we realized we didn't actually need to bubble them until they were trying to extract because they were Scram chaining. That's fucking hilarious.
Initiative has a fleet where they just run basically command destroyer fleet, and they use ECM burst. They jump in, ECM burst, then their next one spools up,
Yep.
which is Snatchfleet they call it. It's a really cool fleet concept. The one thing I've been waiting for that you can do that I've never seen happen is I want to see someone bomb someone from 130 kilometers away. I want them to bomb the jump destroyer, and I want it to bring the bombs in from 100 kilometers away, and use your smart bombs and dicks now. You got to time it perfectly, but if you can make it work, it'd be awesome.
Fuck, that'd be a one-way trip for that Magus.
It's true, but still, how cool would that be?
That's next level Rooks and Kings shit.
Is it worth the loss at that point though? Because the cost of the Megas.
Well, it depends what you kill. Like if you go in and you kill like one or two things, no. But if you jump in and you kill with a perfect bombing run, like the entire Hurricane fleet or whatever, then yeah, sorry, bud, but you're gonna die.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
No, jump destroyers are amazing, and especially people who underestimate the ability of people to pull or pounce like at extreme distances. Like, if someone's, as a practical example, someone was doing some kitey games on a station. You know the Galante outpost that's like really tall. Well, he was in a phantasm vertically going from the bottom to the top at about 2K a second, and then turning around and coming back down. So our fleet was 100K away from him, and we managed to, our jump team, I shouldn't say we, our two particular jumpers who are amazing, managed to time a double jump so that he pulled the entire fleet of us on top of him and then immediately blinked him off the station, and we were all in Confessor, so we just scram web blapped the shit out of him, and the dude was just like slackjaw about it. Like he cannot believe he caught us, or we caught him.
It's such a fantastic feeling. I was just going out with like a small fleet the other day, and I don't actually go out with other fleets too much these days. You kind of, as an FC, at least for me, I kind of get the urge to like, oh, I wouldn't do this, and it kind of starts to annoy me. So I don't do it too much. But when I went out with this, it was a Cormorant fleet or something like that. I don't remember. It was something like that, maybe Talwars or Caracals or something. And I caught NC.FC, who was in the Legion, and I jumped him off the gate with my Stork or my Bifrost, and we killed him. We killed his high grade slave pod. His Legion was pimped out, so we got like a 3 billion-ish kill all around. His Macarial fleet jumped in, but they were autocannon fit, so they were trying desperately like to burn up and get him, but they just couldn't get him in time. So we had a great time. The day that came out, I did a Bifrost, and I took. I was going after like an Executor, I think, and I started spooling it, burning at it at full speed. I started spooling it at 165, and when it finished spooling, I appeared like 4 kilometers off of it. It was like the coolest thing I'd ever done up to that point.
It is definitely shocking to be on the receiving end of anything to do with jump decies.
All right,
Actually,
you old war vets. It's almost closing time.
one last departing thought was that idea you had of jumping the bomb in. I think it would actually work better the other way around, is that you set up some pins so that you have a fleet you draw towards the first pin, you jump them out, and you have bombers waiting at the second pin. The jump destroyer is going to have the ability to align and warp out before the bombs hit.
Yeah, but then you still have to deal with the smart bombs and the dicks. Like that's the whole idea. Is like so many fleets are basically invulnerable or almost so to being bombed these days that I'm trying to think of a way to skip those counters. Because if you jump them in, I mean, I guess. So what you're saying is the bombs could already be in the air when they jump them.
That's the idea, yeah. Is that you time it so that you jump and the bomb's already in the air. You get 6 seconds basically before they hit.
You could do like a quad angle bomb for that too. So you could have 4 sets of bombs coming in from all directions and jump them into death. Man, that'd be tough to do, but if you could pull it off, it'd probably be the coolest bombing run that ever happens in EVE.
That would be a fight ender right there.
Coalition ender.
Yeah, you need to just resign if that happens to you.
Well, if they can do to us, boys, we can't do anything. Fuck it. We're going home.
I think Tridget's already on a bit of a kill streak right now.
A kill streak?
Yeah, corporations that have, just said, fuck it, I'm out.
Well, it's not that we kill them. We just make it so obnoxious to fight us that they stop fighting us.
Save your shoutouts for shoutouts.
Correct.
Last question I'll throw out to you guys. Just a quick one. An old thing that came through the system and has faded out of popularity now. I don't think it's coming back around, but consider it the following. No more fleet warps. This was a thing for a while. It's gone. Should it come back?
What do you mean, no more fleet warps?
What do you mean, no more fleet warp?
No more forced fleet warps. They were talking about it when there was no. They were talking about no fleet warps to bookmarks or no fleet warps to scan probe results.
Yeah.
Okay. Specifically, like no fleet warps at all is like super fucking terrifying to me as an FC. No fleet warps to bookmarks or to scan results or something that slows things down in a way that I feel will hurt Fozzie's off. Like, I'm not even talking about the big engagement. I'll let you talk about that, Asher. But like specifically, one of the metas at this point is for people to come in with like a rapier or a Huggin or something like that does 4K, and they'll entoast us with that. And the only way to counter that is to have a whole bunch of indies land on girded with a covert ops and have that covert ops slingshot them to him, and then you all bum rush the guy because he can only like web one or two of you down before you get tackle on him, and then the fleet warps in to kill him. That's the only recourse to that. And as in the small gang environment or the medium size or whatever size, I feel that the inability for us to right click warp our fleets or to right click warp a squad to a location or to scan results or whatever will be more of a hurt to the people, to not the intended targets. Like I feel like that kind of change, the intended targets would be like the block level, whereas sure it may hurt them or not, it will really hurt people who don't have extra bodies.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I practiced for it when they announced that they were going to get rid of it, 3 or 4 months later, and I was confident that I would be able to deal with it no problem. But I always felt it was a buff for someone who was prepared. Like I felt like it was a buff for me. Like I would do better in that situation than the majority of people, so I was fine with it. But Fozzie hadn't rolled around yet, or it just started maybe. And man, yeah, you're right. Those rapiers would become even more cancerous, moving at 4K a second with no way to warp onto them. But it would do good for kiting doctrines, which are really, you have to go so fast these days in a kiting doctrine to make it work because of scan probes that outside of a very few doctrines you can't even do them anymore. But it could bring back kiting battleships if you did something like that. You could see cruise ravens actually ride again, stuff like that. MJD stuff where if they're burning at you, you can MJD away. It would open up a lot of new territory for that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
you'd want to balance those two, I suppose.
I think maybe I'm pulling a bad idea on my ass here, but I'm thinking a module that would be fit to a ship that would take enough power grid to make another fitting, or enough fitting mods to make another fit less appealing, and have that fit, or have this module make sure that anything that tries to probe anything within an AoE of it gets moved by X% or a random amount. So if you warp to 0, you might land at 50, or you warp to 100, you might land at 0, or something like that.
That's
just
not a
to
terrible
fuck
idea.
with people.
I like that idea.
And then having that module not able to be on at the same time as an Natosis module would service both my complaint and the thing that you said, that you're right, because I agree with you. Part of the reason why a lot of people don't run Kaiti doctrines is because they know a much larger and superior enemy force also runs a Kaiti doctrine. So as soon as they get that warp in, then it's just numbers versus less numbers. Whereas, I can see that on the block level, how you could pull some fancy shit if you knew for a fact that maybe someone isn't going to warp to 0-1 you at every 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that idea.
How about a command burst that makes you unprobable?
I think that could get broken real quick.
Well, no, I think he's onto a right thing, but they'd need to actually change the foundation of probing to make that work. Because if you tie that with sig radius and sensor strength, then to make someone unprobable would also make them unjammable.
No, not sig radius. Like just the combat recon, not probable or not scannable.
Well, I like the deviant idea where you can probe that there would just be a large deviance factor in how closely you land to the results if they're running that module or that burst or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
I'm particularly partial to that idea because just like you're saying, if you're running a kiting doctrine that's maybe not the fastest in the world, so a warp to 0 would be death of your fleet, but maybe a warp to 50 wouldn't be, where you can just like veer away or something like that.
Right,
I
because
feel
they're
that
not
would-
putting the long webs on your FC ship. Then you're not
exactly.
I just lament a time where every line member has its place and every line member has its purpose.
I think that losing fleet warps would actually be a bit of a boon to Nubro Training Corps, and specifically in small gang, because you have to drill that discipline. You're required to drill that discipline because you can't take advantage of fleet warp.
Well, that would be a dividends that pays off in months versus a high skill cap group of people or a very experienced cadre of people like like a core of PL or core of NC dot or I don't know, anybody, pick any fucking group. There would be a core of people that NFC could rely on, but outside of that, like, would you be comfortable, Asher, if you had no fleet warps at all? Or
no, I don't like the idea of getting rid of fleet warps entirely. That'd be I don't think that would be positive for the game to get rid of them entirely. But I'd be fine with it off the probe results, sure, and off bookmark.
Well, that's just a little hobby horse that I got here. I'll take him back outside and shoot him. I have my regular segment I sometimes forget about, but I'll quickly sneak it in here at the end of the show. What is a podcast, a YouTube channel, if you can't think of anything else, an artist that you've been listening to this week and everyone else should listen to in a 30-second elevator pitch? Start with Tridget.
Oh God. Fuck, I just found this band called Starset, and the current video that I'm making features one of their songs. So I've listened to their songs quite a lot over the last 2 weeks.
What genre?
Alternative rock? Fuck, I don't know.
Country metal. Gotcha.
Oh
Jurius?
God.
Something you've been listening to, Jurius? A podcast or a YouTube channel?
I tend to spend a lot of time listening to podcasts and YouTube videos because I work in the university and I do IT, so my days can get a little slow. I would say the one that I'm most enamored with recently has been DeLone Wolf, and watching some of his earlier PvP videos and some of the shit fit stuff that he's done, and just seeing how it's worked out for him, and kind of taking it from the perspective of somebody else. I mean, he's just one of many YouTubers out there that are doing a really great job. But I've been really looking at older videos just to kind of see where people have come from.
Great. Asher?
I've been listening to some cool science YouTube channels. But one I watched a bunch lately. They don't put out a ton of stuff, but when they do, it's really good. It's called Every Frame a Painting, and it's about cinema. And
I know that.
yeah, it's quite good. And they talk about what was in the director or the composer's mind, or when they made these shots. And it's really interesting. The guy definitely knows his stuff. So it's on YouTube, and it's called Every Frame a Painting.
I have actually heard of that, and that is super interesting.
Yeah,
I gotta redeem myself for that one. I will put the Great War in.
yeah,
The YouTube channel, The Great War. This dude Indy Idell. He runs what happens in a particular week during World War I, and it starts with the lead up, and he goes through every week. And he started in like 2013 or 2014 or something like that.
It's pretty crazy how in depth that guy gets.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. This guy's amazing.
Yeah, those are both great channels. Actually, I've watched both of those. Another really good one on the movie theme is the Nerd Writer. If you've never watched his channel, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, I have.
Bottomless well of information you guys are. My channel this week, I'm gonna pump. Kiss Inglewood is in the channel. He might understand where I got this one from. The UKF drum and bass podcast. It's strictly mixes. It's strictly an hour long, and it's strictly gonna pump you up for maybe going for a run, working out, or me just typing away at a keyboard. All right, we'll drop into shoutouts. Shout out whichever group you love, or your friend, or that person who gave you a one-up on Reddit. We'll start with Asher.
I like to shout out orange juice. I really like orange juice. It's like the best beverage. Not without pulp. That's garbage. Throw it out. Some pulp or extra pulp is fine, but that's really the only way to take it. That's my only shout out.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just say take it.
Good old orange juice. Tridget?
I'll say I'll shout out to my Iron Armada guys. They're the ones who keep me coming back to this game for way too many hours every day.
Beautiful. Sticking to the casuals. Jurius.
Well, I think I'd like to make my shout out to RVB, specifically because we at Uni just recently wrapped a war with them, which was something of an annual event we've done every other year, past couple of years, and they're always fun sports to go up against in LoSec, and they're a fun group, but I'm interested to see how they grow and change with the addition of alphas.
Beautiful. And I am going to shout out my FC team in Shadow State. When can't count on an FC from the Imperium to throw out a ping in the old underutilized West Coast time zone, always come through with a good little fleet. Asher,
A lot of garbage FCs in the Imperium. I agree.
more deployments, Asher. Come on.
I'll work on it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you have tuned in live and missed a portion of the show or want to catch us in post, you can find us on RSS feeds on any of your favorite podcatchers, iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Player FM. Just search Mindclash Podcast on there and you'll find us. If you can't find us on your podcast app, please let me know and I'll get it posted on there. And if you're listening in post and you want to find us live so you can stop in and call me an idiot, please check us out on our Twitch channel Monday nights for US time zone at 0300 at twitch.tv/mindclashlive. And for our guests, thank you for coming by. And for our listeners, we appreciate you all. If you love the show and want to see us work more on backgrounds, I have some new backgrounds. I need to pay the guy for them. Please support us on Patreon or just stop by our Discord and say hi. It's always on and we're always looking for more guests and more opinions. So yeah, please stop by. Thank you, everyone. We'll take a 2-week break here for Christmas and New Year's. I'm going to Cuba personally. Not podcasting from Cuba, sorry. But we'll see you in the new year. We have some great shows planned, and we hope to hear you then.
Thanks, man.